welcome to Charter Township of Van Buren Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, April 25th, 2019. We'll start with a roll call, please.
Here.
Thank you. We have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? I'm going to take Ms. Budd.
Approve the agenda as presented with the changing of moving new business item number 3 to be new business item number 1. New business item number 1 will be 2, and number 2 will be 3, and we'll move down.
All right, motion with a change in order. Is there support? Support. Commissioner Boynton. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of approving the agenda as changed, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. And we have minutes from the meeting of April 10th of 2019. Is there a motion? Well,
It doesn't sound like the mic's working. They can hear you right there, but not
through the mics.
How's the sound? Hello?
Okay.
About this?
Okay. All right, I'll speak up. So, we are at the approval of the minutes in tonight's agenda. This is minutes for the meeting of April 10th of 2019. Is there a motion to approve the April 10th minutes?
So moved.
Commissioner Boynton, support. Commissioner Franzoy. Any discussion or changes to the minutes? All in favor of approving April 10, 2019 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. First item on tonight's agenda is a public hearing. Item number 1, Ashley Capital Crossroads North Distribution Center is requesting special land use approval. The applicant, Ashley Capital, is requesting a special use permit to construct a distribution center. The distribution center is proposed to consist of 3 buildings totaling 1,579,325 square feet of space. The proposed development is located near the northwestern intersection of Ecorse Road and Haggerty Road. The parcel ID is V125-83-008-99-0002-703 and parcel ID V-125-83-005-99-0009-701. It is approximately 158.5 acres. We'll start, please, with a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Commissioner Boynton, support.
I'm sorry, didn't you say we were going to be number 2 and number 3?
For the business, but we're going to keep the public hearing exactly the same order the way it was. All right, no problem. I'm glad you asked. Support for the motion. I'll take Commissioner Franzoy's support. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the public hearing is now open. We'll have a presentation by the applicant, and then we'll hear audience input on this agenda item. If you'd like to speak to this item, and we encourage you to do so during the public hearing, if you would come to the podium, tell us your name and address. If you would keep your comments specific to this agenda item, there'll be a chance to speak on other agenda items later on during the meeting. But we'll start first with a presentation by our applicant, Ashley Capital.
Okay, or
I
is
can.
it this mic? Okay, thank you.
Dueling
Uh,
mics.
My name is Alan Dresselhaus. I'm Vice President with Construction and Development for Ashley Capital. We're here today to talk about our development at Crossroads North there at Ecorse and Haggerty. Site is approximately 117 acres, 3 buildings, 1 building being light industrial and 2 others being distribution warehouse, and it's totaling approximately $1,579,325. What I'd like to do today is first introduce Joe Webb with Webb Engineering. He's going to take you through the site and the civil part of it, and then I will have our architect Doug Falzone come up and address the landscaping and building elevations. We have had this property for approximately 20 years now. Last time we were in front of you was about 1.5 years ago, and there were some concerns regarding traffic studies, wetlands mitigation, and some neighboring concerns. And so hopefully this evening we'll be able to address all of those and be able to move forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you.
Good evening. Just addressing the items that relate to special land use regarding the distribution centers. We did meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance, more particularly the 450-foot setback from E-Course Road, 350 foot from residential use or zoning to the truck docks or trailer staging, 60-foot green belt surrounding the property abutting residential, and 500 foot from any residential dwelling unit. Those are the big, I don't know if you want to go into the other stuff right now for a site plan. So,
No, I think we'll just do the special use right now. Thanks, Mr. Webb.
well, that's more site plan than special land use. So, yeah, because we also have the site plan. Do you actually want us to do our site plan spiel now, or?
Let me ask you, Director Akers, do you want to, at this point, see any of the architectural stuff, or do you want to just hold off until?
You know, it might make sense for them to give an overview of their site plan, just because of some of the comments might be related to site design, and you know, maybe if there's questions out there, some of their presentation could answer it. So I think it's appropriate.
Great.
So
All right, let's see the site plan.
You're going to need to get the other screen up. You want to hang out for me, please? Yep. Okay. Good evening. My name is Doug Falzon. I'm the architect that generated most of this. Just to give you a sense of what we're planning on doing. Am I not? Oh, you can hear me without that. You're familiar with Ashley's buildings that have been around for a while. This will be a very similar building. It'll be constructed out of precast concrete. It has a pattern and a texture and a color scheme. Your ordinance, as many ordinances when it comes to this type of use, basically tries to hide the building. It requires a large setback from frontage road. It requires a berm and heavy landscaping. Over the past year and a half or so, we have worked on a landscaping plan and the berm with city staff or township staff, and think that we've come up with a reasonable approach. So what you see here is a view of the building from E-Course Road looking west, and you see basically the berm, a mixture of existing trees and new trees, and you can see how the building very much falls into the background of the site. Can I have the other?
Yeah, which one?
Okay. So this is the finished product. If you didn't require the berm and landscaping, which we're not saying you shouldn't, because you should, that's what you get, okay? So I believe that we're following the intent of the code, clearly in the ordinance, providing the berm, the landscaping, very good thing to do. But we've also added a fair amount of detail to the building itself. So you can see the glass panels versus a contrasting color and paint. Again, trying to give the building some rhythm, anticipating an office use. There are at minimum 6 entrances along the tenant entrances along the side. Stick here. So, this would be an office block. There'd be down in the middle, next one. If you look at the plan there, again, it is a warehouse, but it anticipates a fair amount of office use. So I can talk some more, but I wouldn't be saying much. Okay, all right. Put the other one back up, please. Okay. Oops. Thank you.
Great, all right.
that concludes our presentation.
If there are questions or other things we want to ask, we'll bring you back up. Anyone to speak to this agenda item? You want to come up?
Sue Farr, 6960 Hagerty Road. I've been up here multiple times. I received a very nice letter the first time ever while they've been approaching us about purchasing our property. And that is because I called them because I had heard they had approached all of us. I have never been approached since the last meeting we were here. The first option that they offered was to buy our empty lot, which would put them 10 feet from my garage. The second option was to buy the empty lot and the back. They're offering the first option was 120 for all of it. Second option was to buy the empty lot, which this dumb blonde, as they called me years ago, is not that dumb. I'm not gonna have them 10 feet from my garage. Third option was they'll buy the rear of our properties. Again, I don't think I'm that dumb to have them right at my back door. They're already gonna be at my back door. I called them and said 2.5 times if they had offered that way back, I would have taken it. You see, they offered me 30,000. Back then, my empty lot was 12. Times 2 is 24, and a half is 6, 30,000. They offered me nothing for my home or the property. This is ridiculous. And now they don't want to offer that 2.5. You can't win with them. And when I went to see when they were cutting down more trees, I was told to get off their property, mind my own business, that Van Buren has their back. Obviously, they do, and they don't have ours.
Thank you, Ms. Farr. Other comments, questions from the audience? Anyone? Questions, comments from the commission? Ms. Christian, I think you had a clarification for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the members of the audience and for the board's benefit, I just wanted to summarize that this property is zoned MT, which is Industrial Transportation District. Most of it, except for a few small isolated pieces along the west property line bordering the ITC corridor. Those are zoned R1B. At this time, the project is before you for consideration of special land use for the 2 distribution center buildings only. The ordinance classifies distribution center buildings as those that have a dock to a floor area ratio of between 1 to 4,000 and 1 to 8,000. These 2 buildings each have a total area of 658,989 square feet, and they have 1 dock for every 5,883 square feet. So the special land use review is restricted to the 2 buildings in the back. The building that is in front along Ecorse Road, based upon the number of docks it has, does qualify just as an industrial warehouse, which is the principal permitted use in the MT district.
I'll ask again, any other comments from the audience or questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Commissioner Francois, support Commissioner Jar. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, and the public hearing is closed. We'll go on to the second item on tonight's agenda, which is also a public hearing. This is a rezoning. The applicant, Carl G. Speaks, is requesting to rezone the property located at 1123 Savage Road from M1 Light Industrial to R1B Single Family Residential. The subject property is located at 123 Savage Road, parcel ID number 83-105-99-0011-000. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? So moved. Commissioner Jar, support? Support. Commissioner Atchison. All in favor say aye. 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 And thanks. It's same as last time. We'll have a presentation by the applicant, and then we'll take comments. If you'd like to speak to this agenda item, if you come to the podium, tell us your name and address. And again, keep your comments specific to this agenda item. There'll be chances to speak on other agenda items later on in the meeting. We'll start first with presentation by the applicant.
My name is Loretta Speaks. I'm here to represent my brother-in-law, Carl Speaks, who's out of town.
Okay, thank you.
And he's requesting that the property on 1123 Savage Road parcel be changed to residential because he wants to sell it with the house on it too.
Okay. Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Anyone here who wants to speak to this agenda item? Any questions or comments from the commission? Last call for any comments on this agenda item. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Atchison, support. Commissioner Jar. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, then this public hearing is closed. So now we're going to move to new business. This is where we've reordered the agenda. So the first item under new business is going to be the rezoning. The applicant, Carl G. Speaks, requesting to rezone the property identified at 123 Savage Road from M1 Light Industrial to R1B Single Family Residential. And do you have anything else to say at this point, Ms. Speaks? Okay, then we're going to have a review from staff, and then we'll see if there are any questions or comments that come from that. So we'll go to Stamper. Thank you.
All right. So as it was just stated, the property in question is 1123 Savage Road. It's approximately 1.59 acres in size and is located at the northwest corner of Savage and Martinsville Roads. The applicant, Carl Speaks, is requesting to rezone the property from M1 Light Industrial to R1B Single Family Residential. I guess at this point, I'll stop and say that last month, the Planning Commission recommended 2 rezonings to the Township Board. This is on the same row of properties. It's a very similar rezoning case. So a summary of it, like I just said, from M1 Light Industrial to R1B Single Family Residential. The existing use of the parcel is already residential, and the future land use map designates the property as residential. So that's what the ordinance requires, that be in line with the future land use map. So the primary purpose for the request is the property owner is working towards selling their home, and the purchaser is currently having difficulty obtaining a mortgage because it's a residential use, but it's under industrial zoning right now. So there are a number of criteria under the zoning ordinance that must be met for a rezoning recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless the commission would like me to, I won't go through each of those in detail. I'll just jump ahead to the end to the staff recommendation.
Excellent, thank you.
That based on the findings in the staff report, that staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the request to rezone parcel 83-105-99-0011-000 1123 Savage Road from M1 Light Industrial to R1B Single Family Residential.
Great, thanks so much, Ms. Stamper. Questions or comments from the audience, from the Planning Commission? Anything? This is very similar to what we just reviewed at our last meeting. Same purpose, same area of town, so, all right. If there's no further discussion, is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Atkinson.
I move to grant the applicant Carl G. Speaks rezoning of the property located at 1123 Savage Road, parcel number 83-105-99-0011-000 from light industrial to R1B single family residential. For the record, I want to notate Grace Stamper, intern, letter dated April 10th, 2019, with her recommendations.
Great, thanks. And that would be a recommendation for rezoning to the Township Board. Okay. Is there support?
Support.
Commissioner, I'll take Commissioner Budd. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? In that case, it's a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you. So now this recommendation goes from the Planning Commission to the Township Board. And thank you very much for coming and presenting on behalf of your brother. Item 2 under new business is Ashley Capital Crossroads North Distribution Center Special Land Use Request. The applicant, Ashley Capital, is requesting the special use permit to construct the distribution center. The distribution center is proposed to consist of 3 buildings totaling 1,579,325 square feet. It is located near the northwestern intersection of Ecorse Road and Haggerty Road, approximately 158.5 acres, same parcel ID numbers as we heard from the public hearing. So I'll ask the applicant, anything else you'd like to share with us on special land use at this time, or we'll go to review letters by our professionals.
Oh, just one item.
Certainly.
It made the review letter by McKenna made reference to the traffic impact study. We did have that completed. It was approved by Wayne County and the township engineer.
All right. In that case, Let's go to a special land use review letter. Please, Ms. Christian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As was summarized previously, the site is zoned empty, and the special land use request is pertaining to distribution center buildings number 5 and 6 that are located in the back of the property. The zoning ordinance has specific standards based upon which any request for special land use is considered. I'll summarize those in brief. The first being that the special land use will promote the use of land in a socially and economically desirable manner. The site is zoned empty, as I mentioned, and it's the single largest empty zoned parcel located in the strategic Ecorse Haggerty Road corridor. The proximity to Ecorse Road interchange and at the I-275 interchange contributes to the site's desirability as a distribution center, offering good access for truck traffic. There are some single-family zoned parcels abutting this larger empty zoned parcel that have frontage onto Haggerty. However, the site plan does propose the required green belts along all of the property lines, and also the setbacks proposed to the buildings exceed what is required by the ordinance in order to provide for the required buffer. Now, is the special land use necessary for public convenience at the location? The proposed distribution center will support the market for warehousing and similar uses in the region's freeways. The site is envisioned in the future of the township's master plan also for industrial transportation-based uses. So as such, what they're proposing is in keeping with what the township has envisioned for this corridor area. Is the special land use compatible with the adjacent uses of land? The proposed plan for distribution centers 5 and 6 is consistent with the empty district, allowing for larger, heavier transportation-based uses. The way the buildings are designed is to keep the dock areas between the buildings and to provide for adequate setback as the ordinance requires from not just single-family residential uses, but also from single-family residentially zoned parcels. So the proposed building has multiple setback requirements to meet, and at this time, it does conform to those requirements. There are extensive landscaping, which I will go over when I do my site plan review letter, wide green belts, berms, and a minimum of 380 feet for the building from all of the lot lines. All of these factors, the green belts, the placement of the building, and the dock areas makes it compatible with the master plan and as such suitable for this particular area where it is located. The special land use is designed, located, and operated to protect health, safety, and welfare. We believe once the site plan review requirements are met and it conforms to the recommendations of the engineer, the site will be designed in order to meet the standard. The next comment is the special land use can be adequately served by public services and facilities. And this was the area where the applicant was not just required to get engineering approval for the site from the township's engineers, they also needed to get approval for the traffic and the improvements that need to be made along their site's frontage on Ecorse from Wayne County. The applicant has stated on the record that at this time, Wayne County and the township engineers have approved the plan, but that is something that I would defer to the township engineer to verify. The operation of the use with the site improvements for landscaping, buffering, the building appearance, and proper circulation once implemented would be consistent with the township's master plan and the existing zoning for this area. Now, the special land use will consider the natural environment and help conserve natural resources and energy. There is a detailed tree survey submitted that shows an overall tree preservation of 81.7% of trees, with only 23 of the trees considered as regulated under the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance being actually removed. Now, for those trees that are being removed, they are also required to provide adequate replacements, and their landscape plan does account for those replacements. Replacement trees are above and beyond what is required for landscaping itself. The special land use is within the provisions requiring special approval. We believe those comments are addressed more in detail in our site plan review letter, and at this time, the applicant is before the board for preliminary site plan, so we will be reviewing it. This is an exercise of the township's police power, and as such, the proposal is consistent with it, with the Planning Commission making a recommendation on the special land use to the Township Board of Trustees, who will make the final decision on the request for special land use. The ordinance has specific standards for distribution center buildings, which are mostly site design-related items, such that a building containing such use shall not be located less than 250 feet from any residential district and 500 feet from any residential building. The proposed distribution center buildings exceed these requirements. Any building containing such use shall be located not less than 450 feet from any public right-of-way. The distribution centers are approximately 795 feet from Ecorse Road and over 1,000 feet from Haggerty Road right of way. They meet the standard. With regard to the placement of the truck docks, a minimum setback of 350 feet is required. Now, the proposed dock and staging areas are located at least 384 feet. One of the comments we did have is the applicant is proposing to develop the site in 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The building number 5 will be constructed as part of phase 1, along with the pad for building number 6, which is the northernmost distribution center building. We had asked the applicant to provide for a maintenance plan for the stone pad in the event phase 2 gets delayed or does not materialize, and the applicant did provide for a weed control and maintenance plan for the growing season. We just recommend that that be expanded to maintain it not just in the growing season, but at all times. The site needs to be maintained. At this time, based upon our review, we believe that distribution center buildings 5 and 6 meet the criteria for special land use approval. So it's our recommendation that the Planning Commission recommend to the Township Board of Trustees to approve the requested special land use, subject to the conditions that are listed in our review letter dated April 18th.
Great, thank you so much. Director Akers, in the public hearing now and then also in previous meetings, we've heard from residents, particularly adjacent to this parcel, about their concerns about the impact on their livelihood and their property. And I know that you've had conversations with a number of them who are not here tonight about the possibility of their property being purchased or somehow other use. And you've also had conversations with the township attorney about what we can consider in those circumstances. Could you give us an update, please?
Yes, I know one of the concerns primarily was, the having Ashley Capital purchase out the adjacent property owners, and because A, that's an off-site consideration, and B, because it really kind of puts the Township Planning Commission in a position where, we're kind of, it would put us in the middle between a private interests and a negotiation. It's not something that we can consider as part of special land use approval. We can consider, the criteria in the zoning ordinance, which looks at the buffering requirements, the berming requirements, the setback requirements. Those are all things that we look at to evaluate how this potential use could impact some of the adjacent properties and what level of impact that they have. But as far as, imposing any requirements for Ashley Capital to buy out other properties, that's not something that we have the ability to do.
Great, thank you. I will ask the applicant if you want to have any update for us on where you're at with some of the residents in the area and the parcels that you may be interested in. And I don't need to know specifics, I just would like generally to know where you're at in your process.
Mike Bala with Ashley Capital, and I'm kind of the person tasked with trying to pick up as many of the lots along Haggerty as we can reasonably. So over the last few months, I've reached out to several of the owners to try to make a mutually beneficial deal to purchase the houses or lots, with the understanding that we don't need them for our development right now that's before you, but with the development of industrial in a formerly legacy agricultural and residential area, perhaps a lot of people would like to move to greener pastures, so to speak. So we understand that and have formulated a plan to approach. We haven't done a blanket email or letter or door knocking campaign. We're kind of doing this as the opportunity presents itself. Sometimes people will call. Sometimes I will call people and ask them if they're interested in selling. And we're being very upfront about what we're able to do here. Generally speaking, the value for us is in the land. Again, we don't require it for our development right now, but if we could purchase it all and square off the site in the long run, that would be fine with us. But the value that we place on the land is on the acreage, not the homes, as you might imagine. We don't have any interest in owning homes, and we've done as much as $65,000 an acre, and we purchased some for $50,000 an acre for a larger parcel, because generally when you buy larger parcels, your per acre price goes down. And I stand by that. We're willing to pick up more that are contiguous to our development with those kind of numbers. But what we can't do is just get too far out of whack with what we believe the market is, because again, land is land. We're not buying lands for residential or properties for residential development. So I'm happy to stay around afterwards and speak to any residents that are in attendance and hand out my business card to continue that effort. And I'll continue to reach out to residents, keep an open line of communication. And also, generally speaking, I'll add that in the few deals that we've made so far, what we've offered people is, hey, we'll buy your property and we'll also give you a couple years to live there for free, or for $1 in rent. You just pay the taxes and maintain your property. Take 2 years to find your next home, and then go at your leisure. You don't have to stay that long. You could stay 6 months if you want. But giving someone two years of rent-free living, in addition to paying them what we believe is a fair market value for the property, we feel is more than generous in helping people with the transition from this neighborhood to the next one. So that's
Great.
kind of our approach.
Thank you. I appreciate the information. Questions or comments from the commission on special land use for the applicant, for staff? Anyone?
Madam Chair, sir, the person that was just up there, we have residents watching on TV. Do you mind providing your phone number right now to the audience that's on TV in case somebody's watching that wants to call you?
Sure thing. Again, the name is Mike Balow. The last name is spelled B-A-L-O-W with Ashley Capital. Phone number 734-394-1900. And email, if you prefer, is mbalow@ashleycapital.com. That's M as in Mike, B as in boy, A-L-O-W @ashleycapital.com. Phone number one more time, 734-394-1900. That's our main line. I'm the only Mike there. You'll get me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Atchison? Anyone in the audience?
I have a question. Just because I don't know how many of you have an acre of land, and I dealt with people in Livonia that got bought out, and I'm talking years ago, I'm old, when 275 went in, and they got offered decent prices. A home on, I don't even know where this is, it's Charter Club Estates. They have 0.31 acres. It could happen to that subdivision at any time, and they would get $20,150 for a 4-bedroom home with a 2-car garage. In my case, for my home, 3-bedroom quad level, 2.5-car attached garage, $50,050. Where can I go and buy a 3-bedroom quad level for $50,000? Where? And I'm 70, no, it's not wrong. That is 0.77.
If you could please just address your comments to me. Thank you.
0.77 is what my house is on. I'm not talking the empty lot. I'm talking my home. And I know most of you don't live on more than an acre. Would you sell your home? Would you put my shoes on and sell your home for that? I don't think so. I don't want to be paying for a home the rest of my life. They're building, and I need to ask how we got to buildings 5 and 6. I thought this was 3 buildings, and she was talking 5 and 6.
I think I can clarify for you. They own property, Ashley Capital owns property across the street, and they already call those buildings 1, 2, and 3. So we are 4, 5, and 6 on the north side of Ecorse. Okay.
Because some of those are vacant. I know the front one is on the south side of Ecorse. But would any of you sell at 65 an acre? Most of you don't have an acre, I'm sure. Think about, at any given time, a company could come in and do this to you. And like I said, if they had not been so obstinate 20 years ago, I would have taken that offer. But they didn't offer me a thing for my home and lot. They just offered for the lot, the empty lot. And they called me the crazy blonde, the dumb blonde, because I was arguing with them that 30,000 wasn't normal. It just wasn't, but they wouldn't show me. And we figured it out after Ken told it 2.5 times. That's what they should be still offering, 2.5 times.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Did you want to speak? Yes, sir? No? Sure.
I'm not used to this. I don't
I
live in
understand. Just
Belleville.
tell us what you're thinking.
Johnson. My sister and I have property at 6720 Haggerty.
Okay.
Parents lived there for 40 years. My question is, how many parcels on Haggerty are still open for purchase? I mean, is it 8 parcels? Is it 2 residents and whatever? I'm just curious
Right.
as to how much.
I understand why you'd be curious, but that isn't information that we have access to, and it isn't directly related to the zoning application before
Okay.
us.
I was just, thought I'd throw it out.
It's fine to ask. Director Akers, did you have something?
I did
Uh,
not know.
Oh, sorry. It looked like you were going to speak. I didn't want to cut you off. Okay.
All right,
All
thank
right.
you.
Sure, thank you for your comments. All right. It's been frustrating, I'm sure, for residents. It's been frustrating for the applicant, and it's been very frustrating here and probably at the township board as well, as this change in a large part of our township and one of the gateway parcels in our township has been discussed and proposed and not ready yet, and now we think we're ready. And we have long relationships in this township, both with Ashley Capital and with our residents. So it's very difficult when people are this distraught. But there are very specific legal guidelines to what we can consider and cannot consider. We certainly have no control over what one private entity offers to another private entity to purchase their property. So as frustrating as that has been, I would just encourage Ashley Capital as the applicant to continue to try and reach out to the residents who are having a huge change impact on their life, just as your company is having a huge change impact, and see if there isn't some way that you can work things out in an amenable way. It's the Van Buren way. We are good neighbors. We appreciate each other and try and support each other. Ashley Capital has been a neighbor in Van Buren Township for a lot of years. So that's my piece. Anyone else have questions or comments? If not, are we ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Certainly.
In the McKenna letter, one of the recommendations is that there's a stone pad for Building 6 that shall be maintained in a clean and feed-free manner. I'm not sure that I fully understand the phasing of the project.
Okay,
and
well,
I'm not sure if this is appropriate to bring up for the special use permit or if this would be more appropriate to discuss in the site plan review.
I think it hits both. And since you've got it now, and I think they have an answer for us, we'll hear what the plan on the phasing is.
Director Akers.
Yes, sir. Uh-oh, no power.
And Nicole from our control center will turn it on. Perfect.
So the way that the project is being developed
Yeah,
is
it's a
buildings
mess.
4 and 5 are being constructed up front. And all of the site utilities for the entire development, the detention basin, storm sewer, I apologize. So buildings 4 and 5 are being constructed first. And in addition to that, the building pad for building 6 is being constructed along with buildings 4 and 5. All the site utilities are being constructed for the entire development. Building 6 is going to have all its storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water main installed. And what's going to happen is, again, they're going to concentrate on these 2 buildings. And then hopefully in 2020 or 2021, they'll have this pad ready so they can just go, and have it constructed in a very timely manner. And this is where that stone pad is going to be, pretty much the entire building 6.
Understood.
Okay.
And is there, normally when we do site plan review, there's a time frame for the building, but it looks like in the phasing for phase 2, there's no definite plan, no definite time frame for that? Is that true?
For building 6?
Yes, sir. Phase 2 of the plan. Is there a definite time frame?
Up.
Sorry, gentlemen.
No, our plans are to parlay right into, all three of these buildings right away. We're just saying that we're going to start construction and erection of the panel system on the building 4 right up front, and then 5, then 6. And, part of another submittal and everything, there's another whole development beyond this. So this is a multi-year phase development. But, we're ready to roll, and we want to be pad ready on all three of these buildings this year with actual erection of panels starting the first part of next year. So once we start, we're not stopping.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Questions or comments?
I had one question for you. On the aggregate pad, are you planning on storing any vehicles or anything on that, or just isolated?
No, it'll just be isolated. Like I said, we're going to have all the underground utilities in place. The stoning of the pad will be ready to receive footings, foundations, and panel erection sometime, hopefully by June, July of next year on that particular building.
Thank you.
Through the chair, the
Commissioner Jar.
part of the utilities are the parking lot area around that pad will be installed and paved in phase 1?
Typically what we'll do is we won't put asphalt or curbing in place until the building is erect. We will obviously curb all around, building number 4 and number 5, because we have to have the crane make its way around to lift the panels in place. We wouldn't want to, put that curbing and things in place.
So the intent, if I may, the intent then is that those parking, reserved parking places will not be in use until such time as Building 6 is occupied?
Exactly. And, typically, once the building is erect and we don't have a specific tenant yet, we will actually put the curbing in place, but not actually pave it depending on tenants' needs, whether it's car parking or trailer parking, things of that nature. We'd address it at that time.
And again, how many growing seasons do you expect that pad to be empty without a building?
Oh, like I said, once we mobilize in site, we're not stopping. So,
Well, how many years?
for a project like this, this is,
It should be, yeah, for building 6, it probably will take a year because, again, they're going to concentrate on the front building, the building you actually
number
see.
4 right here first.
And then they'll move it, they'll move into building 6. So just the whole process, one after the other, they're not going to build all 3 at the same time. They're going to build 4, 5, move on to 6. That might be a year. Until all the panels are up, all the steel is up, the roofs are in.
Yeah, and just for comment, if we had our choices, we'd actually want to build building 6 first. But, we want to screen the development from the road and so forth. So therefore, we would come through with that first building first so that the development is screened from traffic and things. Hope that makes sense.
That does make sense. Excuse me for just a moment. I had another question. Actually, if anyone has another question,
Okay. Other questions or comments? We'll just wait for you. Take your
Thank-
time. There's
thank
no
you.
rush. Nobody's going anywhere.
Okay. So at no time will that parking or that pad that will not be in use until such time as there's a building there. That won't be accessory parking to Building 5? No, sir. Okay.
No.
I think that was my main concern.
No, and I understand where you're going. You don't want to approve something and then just have it sit as unintended use and have recreational vehicles or trailers staging back there without an intended use.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That, and we have, we have open space ordinances, and leaving that as an unpaved, or, sorry, a gravel paved open space isn't
Yeah.
really in line with our
Yeah, that's
open
not
space
Ashley
ordinances.
Capital's way. Once we start something, we want to finish it and take a lot of pride in our end product, so.
Thank you.
All right. On this agenda item, which is the request for special land use. Anyone else in the audience? Anything else from the commission? Is there a motion? This will be a recommendation to Township Board.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Boynton.
that we grant the applicant Ashley Capital special. I move that we recommend to the Township Board that we grant special use permit to the applicant Ashley Capital to construct a distribution center located at the northwest intersection of Ecorse Road and Haggerty Road, parcel ID number V125A3-008-99-0002-703 and parcel ID number V-125-A3-005-99-00009-701, totaling 1,579,325 square feet of space, which is approximately 158.5 acres, subject to the recommendation of the letter submitted by McKenna dated April 18th of 2019.
Okay. Motion and support.
Support.
Commissioner Jar, support. Any discussion on the motion? So roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. So that recommendation now goes to Township Board. So you're next on the agenda. And this will be for your preliminary site plan approval. So anything else, gentlemen, that you want to present to us before we go to review letters?
I just want to address those 9 comments from McKenna. Should I do that now or after McKenna does that?
You can tell us now.
So there were 9 items in the McKenna letter for site plan approval that I just wanted to go over real quick to make sure that, you know, we are addressing these and so forth. Correction to the maximum docks allowed. That was a rounding error. When the calculations were done, it was 164.8, rounded up to 165. I understand they wanted to take that down to 164 for the maximum number of docks. That will be taken care of on final site plans. We talked about the phasing, about the maintenance of the pad year-round. We have no problem taking care of that. Number 3, mechanical equipment to make sure that the 3-foot landscaping is required. We spoke to our electrical contractor, and the heights of the transformers vary. So we're gonna have to figure out exactly what kind of transformer they're gonna install, and the landscaping will have to be installed to match that transformer. Number 4, I believe the additional landscaping area that they're talking about that we didn't address is this very corner of the southwest. We did not have a tree survey completed in that area. We will have the trees surveyed and documented, and we will provide that, again, in final site plan. Inclusion of the greenbelt trees along the very north property line. They're asking us to install the trees on the very north up front, and we're a little hesitant to do that just because of the possibility of damage, and we won't probably have an irrigation system in place up there. That's something we can do it if necessary, but prefer not to. The details of the monument sign base are, we understand that the township would like to see a brick base on the monument signs. The only reason we kept that off of the site plans is that we're concerned about the landscaping. If it's gonna cover the base, I don't know if there's necessarily a reason to have brick. But we'll address that with the landscape architect.
Sounds good.
The fixture height of the light poles, we're asking that to be 35 foot, and I think that McKenna recommended that. Rooftop equipment. when Ashley very rarely installs rooftop equipment, but when they do, it's usually about 50 foot back from the edge of the building. And there was a cross-section that shows like more or less your line of sight, looking up from a car, and you're pretty much looking over that mechanical equipment. And the other one was special land use.
Okay, great, thank you. We will have Ms. Krishnan go through your review letter, even though we understand that the applicant has done that in front of us, and looks like they're ready to come in compliance. But preliminary site plan is our chance to make sure that we're all aware of the direction you're headed, and that we're all in agreement that that's the direction you'll go. So when it comes back to final, things are already worked out. So I'm going to ask Ms. Krishnan to go ahead and do a review letter, at least summarize the high points for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As mentioned previously, the site is zoned empty industrial transportation and has got small portions along the west ITC corridor, which are zoned R1B. At this time, the R1B portion will only have the detention basins, and the Planning Commission and Township Board recently approved a zoning text amendment that would allow for the R1B parcels to be used as detention basin as a support to an industrial development. Buildings 5 and 6 are the distribution center buildings, and as Mr. Webb mentioned, they will correct the dock area calculation. It's a very minor difference, but it makes a difference between being a distribution center and a truck terminal. So the correction needs to be made. The building that is up front has got a total area of 261,347 square feet, but with 32 docks total. It is an industrial warehouse, so it is a principal permitted use in the MT district. As to phasing plan, the applicant has explained what their phasing plan is, and subject to the maintenance of the stone pad area for phase 2, we believe it's an acceptable plan. I would recommend, however, that some rough timeline in terms of the years, such as 2021 or something, be added to the plan, so the Planning Commission has something to work off of to know how far out we are looking at this. With regard to dimensional requirements, the ordinance has very specific standards for setbacks to distribution center and warehouse buildings for the front, rear, side yards, distance from a residential dwelling, distance to the trailer docks. The site complies with all of the setbacks, and in some cases more than what is required. With regard to access and circulation, there are 3 driveways proposed off E-Course Road, one each at the southeast and southwest corners, and a centrally placed access drive. The central access drive is intended for vehicles, the office goers. The other 2 drives are intended for truck traffic also. The applicant has provided a letter from Wayne County stating that their traffic study has been approved, and it is subject to review by the township's engineer. I believe one of the recommendations is for the installation of a signal, but the township engineer would review that more in detail. With regard to sidewalks, there is a new sidewalk shown along the site's Ecos Road frontage. Part of the sidewalk is shown located along the applicant's property due to the existence of a drain over there. The applicant will be providing an access easement so that there's no trespassing, since it's a public sidewalk. An easement will be provided and recorded with the property. Based upon parking requirement for the industrial warehouse building and what the ordinance requires for buildings 5 and 6 as distribution centers, the site has provided the required amount of parking, and they are not providing any surplus parking, which typically would require additional approval from the Planning Commission. All of the spaces do meet ordinance requirements and are double striped as required. Each of the buildings also has the required number of handicap accessible spaces. The loading, since it is a distribution center, they obviously comply with the loading dock requirements. With regard to landscaping, there is a lot of landscaping required for the site, starting with landscaping along the public right-of-way on Ecos Road. The ordinance has specific standards for deciduous trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs. The site meets all of those requirements. Additional landscaping is required within the parking lots and on individual islands. The site does comply with that. In addition to that, there is a requirement for interior parking lot landscaping. Areas of the parking lot and abutting it require additional landscaping. That too has been met. As to greenbelt landscaping, a berm is required with a 10-foot wide buffer with 1 tree per 30 linear feet along the north property line between this property that's zoned industrial transportation and any M1 zoned parcel. The site plan does indicate compliance with that greenbelt standard. Now, the important greenbelt is abutting any R1, which is single-family residential zoning district. Now, the landscape plan includes a 60-foot wide greenbelt along the east and west property lines. The greenbelt will be planted with double staggered row of evergreen trees that are placed 15 feet on center on a 6-foot wide berm based upon what the ordinance requires in order to ensure the viability of these trees. One area, as Mr. Webb pointed out, their plan repeatedly said that they are not providing any landscaping next to the detention pond because there is existing trees there. However, the tree survey doesn't show any trees. So if there are no trees, it needs to be landscaped. If there are trees, we need to see what trees those are. And if the trees are not good enough, then you're going to put in more landscaping to make it just perfect. Open space landscaping, the site does require 1 tree per 3,000 square feet of open space area, not occupied by buildings or parking. The site does comply with the required number of trees, and that alone is another 347 additional trees for the site. As to mechanical and utility equipment screening, the compactor areas that are actually built at the edges of the truck docking area are to be screened. They are set down, and the berm that's provided next to it will adequately screen it. With regard to the transformer pads, the applicant has got a point. If they don't know exactly what the transformer site is, I would recommend that a note be added that whatever the final transformer height is, the landscaping to be installed must be 1 foot taller than the transformer. So if it's 5 foot, you're going to plant 6-foot tall trees, whatever it takes to cover it up. As to landscaping around the stormwater detention basin, Wayne County strictly regulates what can and cannot be planted. So as part of their review and approval from Wayne County, we would expect them to get approval of a landscape plan around the pond too. One of the recommendations in the facing plan was that all of the landscaping that is along Ecourse Road, the perimeter green belts, will be planted as part of phase 1. The one thing we had suggested that if Building 6 is just going to have a stone pad, they need to put in the greenbelt trees along the north property line. Now, the only thing they border on their north is more vacant industrial land that is owned by them. At the time I reviewed the plan, I was not sure how long that pad is going to sit there. Is it going to be 2 or 3 trees, 3 years? So I would defer to the Planning Commission that if the building were not to be constructed within the next 18 months, those trees must be installed. They don't need to be installed right off the bat, but if for some reason phase 2 gets delayed beyond 18 months and building 6 does not go up on the stone pad, all of the trees that are shown along the northern green belt must go in. That is a recommendation that we would make. As to tree removal permit, as I previously mentioned, they are removing only 23 trees that are considered as regulated under our zoning ordinance, and required replacement is being provided. With regard to signage, there is a single project sign abutting each of the access drives of Ecourse Road. The proposed size and setback of the sign is within permissible limits by the ordinance. The ordinance actually says that the base of the sign needs to be constructed of masonry. The applicant is mentioning that, landscaping might cover it up. It might, but then again, if the landscaping dies, we are going to see something that's not attractive. So it must be masonry, preferably brick, because that definitely is a gateway entrance into the township on the Ecourse Haggerty Road, and it will present an attractive appearance. With regard to lighting, the site is pretty well lit, so they have submitted a detailed photometric plan that does show that the light intensity and illumination will drop off to 0 along on-property lines. We specifically reviewed the lighting plan to make sure there is no spillover onto the residential properties that are located all along their east and southeast, and their photometric plan does comply. The ordinance permits a maximum height of 25 feet for light poles, but the Planning Commission is allowed to extend it up to 35 feet for industrial buildings. In this case, a 25-foot high light pole will just result in many more light poles being added to the site than what they're proposing. So we would support an increased height of 35 foot, which means fewer light poles and less chance of additional spillage. As to architecture and building details, it is an important consideration for this building, although it is more so for the industrial warehouse that is along Ecourse Road than the distribution centers that are more concealed. The proposed plan is to construct these of precast concrete panels in shades of gray with a metal coping on top. Based on our previous recommendations, some changes were made to actually add contrast bands and increase the number of entrances on the building, so you're not looking at a single massive span of gray along Ecourse Road. At this time, we believe the building does have some amount of relief and is consistent with what you would expect of an industrial building, yet something that is in our gateway corridor. It is not an unattractive building. We had recommended that colored renderings be presented, which the applicant did show tonight. If possible, I was hoping they would have brought building material samples so the Planning Commission would know what exactly they are looking at tonight. Based upon our review of the proposal, it is our recommendation at this time that the proposed project for Ashley Capital Crossroads North be granted preliminary site plan approval, subject to the conditions that are listed in our letter dated April 18th.
Thank you very much, Ms. Krishnan. I'd like to go to you, Mr. Potter, and hear the engineering review, please.
Thank you. Good evening. Our review letter included in the package is dated April 5th, 2019. I would like to clarify that we previously recommended approval of the preliminary site plan. That is rescinded by via this letter. There's a revised set of plans that have been submitted. We reviewed those plans. They are in compliance and meet the spirit of preliminary plan submittal. The site shows engineering feasibility for water, sewer, storm. And one of the comments I do have, perhaps you can address this, is there's been several comments about the traffic study. We only had one traffic study that we reviewed early on, and I understand now that you've agreed to put in a traffic signal on the very west driveway. So that is in review in the construction plans.
Ashley Capital just released the contract for the traffic signal design, which is required by Wayne County. So that is actually being designed right now.
Thank you. And there's a series of letters that you and I spoke about from Wayne County. And as we get into the construction review, we're going to, and this letter requires it, that we get copies of all the correspondence from Wayne County relative to the traffic impact study and the signal, the stormwater permit, Wayne County roads, obviously with signal, and then the SASC permit. In addition to that, the wetlands and the floodplains from MDEQ. And is it your intent to mitigate on site?
No, Ashley is actually mitigating off-site for the wetlands.
How many acres are you headed toward?
That's the mitigation acres. There was about 7 acres of wetlands on the property.
Is that going to be kept within the township, do you know?
It was, the DEQ said we had to go to, a mitigation bank.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure where the mitigation bank is located.
Yeah, it's either the Rouge watershed or the Clinton watershed.
Yeah, one of the watersheds. Okay. Whatever correspondence you have is going to be expected. And also when you get into the pre-construction checklist, it's got to be provided.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, they've met all of our requirements. One last question on the pump station. Sorry about that. We've had discussions on that pump station as far as secondary power. What are you guys going to do there?
Well, I don't know if you noticed this, Dave, but the detention basin got extra deep.
Yeah.
Because we had to push it further north, and the requirement that our pipes remain dry. We can actually store 2 100-year storms back to back without even getting up to the top of the grading limits of the detention basin now. So we have definitely some time, and we are only going to be planning on installing a generator hookup, not a permanent generator for that pump.
Okay. So if the feeds go down, you can bring in a generator.
Correct. And from my understanding, DTE is going to be building a substation on the south side of E-Course someplace eventually. And so we should have pretty reliable power since it's going to be coming right off those high tension lines.
Okay. Thank you. With that, as I noted, we do recommend preliminary site plan approval.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Great, thanks so much. Director Akers, we also have a review from the fire marshal. Preliminary, but do you want to summarize the fire marshal's review for us, please?
The fire marshal made a recommendation for approval with several comments and exceptions, which I'll go through. relatively quickly. If you'll notice on the review letter, there's some items that were crossed out. And some of those items that were crossed out were based on a conversation the fire marshal had with the applicant engineer, Mr. Webb. So what he actually did in his review letter was he highlighted what that conversation was and what some of the adjustments that they're going to make to the plans to accommodate the fire code. Those exceptions include the FDC connections, will be remote FDC connections, so rather than be on the building, will be next to the hydrants out on the site. They are going to be relocating one fire hydrant on the south, or on building 4 to the south side of the drive. There are granting an exception for the parking lots. So the parking lots on both end of building 4 will not have to have extension all the way to open road. This was an exception granted by the AHJ, which is authority having jurisdiction in aid in preventing truck traffic in the passenger parking lots. So our fire marshal looked at that and was okay with it. They're requiring that the final site plans reflect all the changes, that the FDC requirements will be addressed with the suppression contractor upon their submittal. So normally what happens is they go through building review process. They have a separate consultant design the fire suppression system, and those are always a separate set of plans we review in conjunction with the building permit. And then the fire marshals the other exception is the fire marshal is going to require Knox boxes for each tenant space as well as each pump room. Now, the other items with regards to the FDCs, the fire department connections, they list what their township requirements are. And then also the other comment that we see in all the new items is with regards to emergency responder radio coverage. Essentially what our fire marshal does is they do a test to make sure that they can get radio signal throughout the whole building in the event that there's ever any type of emergency. They want to make sure that we're able to communicate with the entities outside the building. So with that, fire marshal recommended approval, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to refer them.
Great, thanks so much. All right, a lot of review, a lot of energy and effort into submissions and the reviewing. So questions or comments from the commission for the applicant, for any of our professionals, for staff? Anyone?
One thing I noticed on the landscape, the trees that were listed were elms. I thought something was killing all the elm trees. Okay. Does anybody have a thought on that? Okay.
I will look at the ordinance and also check if it's a species that is susceptible to disease, then we would recommend that they switch it to another species.
Thank you.
Good. Other questions or comments from the commission?
Through the chair. Lydia, you spoke about them having some kind of a limit on the fact if building 6 doesn't ever get built.
Yes.
Do we need to make sure that gets included with the preliminary, or what do we,
please.
we need to have that? I think that definitely needs to be in there, that. Okay.
I think what was suggested was 18 months. That'd be 18 months from approval of final. That you guys want to think about what's workable and continue the discussion with staff?
I mean, we don't have a problem with that, but we'd like it to be at completion of building 5. I mean, a typical construction duration for a building that's, 400,000 or 500,000 square feet, that doesn't happen overnight. So, it's about a 11 to 13 month ordeal, given we're in Michigan too with the weather and so forth. So as soon as we would complete building number 5, we have no problem certainly completing building number 4, completing building number 5 within the 18 months time frame.
I think this was more about building 6, right? We're concerned about that. We're concerned about that pad. We understand the value for the development of putting all of your infrastructure in and having that pad ready to go, but not wanting that to turn into a big, empty, overgrown, abandoned parking area.
Completely agree. I just, I feel that, the concentration is going to be on building number 4 first to screen, and then building 5 will follow suit right after that. And then as soon as we have completion of building 5, we'll roll right into building 6. So, I mean, even if it was, say, 12 months duration after completion of building number 5, we would be okay with that.
Okay, thanks. So you guys will work out what the language needs to be in final, right? Right, okay, good. I have a question about, and I don't know if you're there yet, but how are you going to manage traffic? Who's allowed to use what driveways when there are 3 driveways, but not all full access for trucks?
A lot of times it doesn't depend on what we do. They do what they want to.
Get that.
Pretty much that center driveway, it's narrower than the others. We're going to post it as best we can for no trucks allowed. Both off, as you may have noticed on the schematic that was completed, there's a right turn lane that leads all the way to that drive. So we can pretty much do some significant signage on there saying no trucks.
It's controlled access, right?
Correct.
I'm sure you guys are looking at that,
Yep.
right, Mr. Potter? Okay, yeah, because that intersection that you're so close to on that easternmost driveway is a hazardous intersection now. That was actually a question I had for you, Mr. Potter. In the traffic study, they noted that there might need to be some changes to that, how that intersection is signaled now, that some of those are of concern. So how do we work through that between the applicant, Wayne County, and Van Buren Township?
Well, first of all, we look at what Wayne County required since they have jurisdiction in the right-of-way. And then we look at the traffic movements that they're proposing and then how they're going to restrict and direct access to their site. So if I recall, the very, I would say, eastern driveway is the one that was going to be intended for right turn only into the site. Is that still consistent?
The center turn lane actually extends across the eastern driveway also, so there's the possibility that trucks could turn left, north into the site if they're heading east.
I don't like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all.
What
I,
we're
don't,
gonna-
I understand Wayne County has first say on this, but I would be very concerned about
Yeah, so
Something that also plays in account is sometimes they, depending on who their tenant is, they have a fence installed on portions of the truck dock area, so you can't necessarily get from one side to the other. So
through the
sometimes
parking area. You lost me. Okay, through the truck dock area.
we're going to be looking at how they're routing traffic on the site. That's primarily the thing because early on when we first looked at the traffic study, the intent was to circulate traffic, from the east side into the site, then out the very western side and restrict the center. So that made sense to us. The traffic signal on the west side made sense to us. I think everybody's come to agreement on that. So
that's a twofer also. It covers the Crossroads South
yeah,
site also.
that's right. So we're going to look at the alignment issues and then we'll look at the routing issues.
Okay.
And who are you using for your traffic right now? Is it still?
It was Parsons,
Yeah,
but we're using Fleisch.
Fleece and
for
Vanderburg?
the-
Yeah, Fleece,
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
For the signal design.
Farmington Hills?
Yes.
Yep. Okay,
Okay, good luck.
thank
Thanks.
you. Yep,
Bring us back something we can live with.
you got it.
Anyone in the audience, questions or comments for site plan on this application? Sure, Ms. Farr.
Matthew, what happened to them doing Haggerty Road from Ecorse to Van Born? You sent me an email, and it had from Ecorse to Tyler, but it also had, and even the UPS driver told our neighbor, that they were supposed to do that. Suddenly, your email got deleted from me when I went to look at it for the golf cart place. And so I don't know what happened, but what happened to them not fixing Haggerty Road from there to there? Is it because we have too many warehouses and the truck traffic would be stopped and L&W would be in trouble? Is that why Wayne County's not doing this now?
No, they had there was a worker strike last year with a lot of the road workers towards the end of the season. They were proposing, just for the commissions, they were proposing to do, they call it a mill and overlay project, but on asphalt roads, it's built like and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but the asphalt roads are built like a layer cake. So you have a base, and then you have a middle layer, and then on the top you have a wearing course. So a mill and overlay project, what they'll do is they'll mill off that top wearing course, and they'll put down they'll fix the areas where there might be cracks, and they'll put down a fresh wearing course of asphalt on top. Wayne County had proposed to do a mill and overlay project on Haggerty Road between Tyler and Ecorse, and then they were proposing to do a mill and overlay project between Ecorse and Van Born, where the mill and overlay project between Ecorse and Van Born, they were going to do then there's more information. Again, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're going to do a 3-inch wearing course, which is a more heavier duty wearing course because of the truck traffic that was on Haggerty. Because of the strike that they had last year, they were unable to complete the project before the winter set in. My understanding is it's still on the schedule for this year. So I understand that they are going to do it next year. Now, the county's roadwork schedule is on their website. They publish it every year. And I haven't seen it this year, but I was told that it was going to be completed this year.
Totally disappeared off my computer. I mean, here I have people there and I'm pulling it up and it's gone. And everyone had seen it, so they knew I had it, but it disappeared. And the only thing I could think of was you deleted it. But my thing is, anyone who drives that, anyone, we have cars with front-end damage weekly. There's no way that they can just come in and mill it down, because there is no milling down anymore. They've patched it so much, there's not even asphalt in some spots. It's ridiculous. They're gonna have to tear it all out and redo. And all I know is all this traffic now, FedEx, and you can ask Officer King, he came out to our house and ticketed, I don't know how many people. I have no clue. I wasn't home. Literally, they came because of the turn lane for Ecorse. They came down the dirt off the pavement from L&W and all those other warehouses and came through the dirt and raced up to the turn lane, to the point you should see in front of our mailbox. I've leveled it for the last time. But we had a semi do it the other day. So something has to be road study. I haven't read Wayne County's road study. You guys have. I can't believe they approved not widening. There's something wrong here somewhere, because L&W themselves had a semi overturn on that corner. No reason. Too fast. We have truck traffic all day, 55 to 65. Now they're using the dirt. How much do you want? Someone needs to do the road study again. You got cameras up there. Go watch them. See how many semis go without the new building.
Thank you. Director Gies, will you just notify Public Safety that we have these concerns on both Ecorse and Haggerty?
I will.
Thank you. All right. If there's nothing else, is there a motion on the request for preliminary site plan approval? Notes to remember to fold in.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Boynton.
bear with me. I move that we grant the applicant Ashley Capital preliminary site plan approval to construct a distribution center. Located near the northwestern intersection of Ecorse Road and Haggerty Road, parcel number V 125-83-008-99-00002-703 and ID number V 125-83-005-99-00009-701, approximately 158 acres in size, subject to the letter from Van Buren Township Fire Marshal David C. McAnally II, dated April 9th of 2019. Also subject to the letter from Township Engineering Fishbeck, Thompson, Carr, and Huber, dated April 5th of 2019. Also, all of the recommendations provided by Ms. Krishnan today in correspondence to the McKenna letter of April 18th, 2019, to specifically call out, and there are a number of them, the concern with the transformers and the height of the vegetation, and for those, the recommendation for the green belt along the north side. Well, look, let me make this real simple. All the things that she said just a little while ago, that's what we're going to do.
Through the chair, typically request the motion include an addition for the time frame, specific time frame on the Phase 2 project.
Yes, I was going to get to that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And you want us to also acknowledge the 35-foot light pole?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, for the clarity of the motion, I will just restate the conditions that I had amended.
Thank you.
Condition number 3 would be addition of screening around the mechanical equipment to include landscaping that is 1 feet above the top of the mechanical equipment. Modification to condition number 5 that says inclusion of greenbelt trees along the north property line within 18 months of completion of building 4 if building 6 is not yet constructed. And also addition of a condition that the elm species proposed is to be changed if it's determined to be unsuitable for the site. If Commissioner would accept those 3.
Yes, and that's that. And do we have included in that with the conforming with the ordinance of the sign and the base
Yes.
being masonry?
Yes.
And okay,
Yes.
as long as all that stuff, then okay, all of that.
All right, we have a motion. Is there support? Commissioner Francois. Let me make sure Ms. Harmon has, as always, she's good. All right, any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, gentlemen, you've got some homework to do. I think you'll be keeping our staff very busy, and we look forward to seeing you back for final. We are to item number 4 under new business. Upland Homes is seeking site plan amendments. The applicant, Upland Homes, is requesting an amendment to the approved Country Walk site plan for revised single-family architectural elevations. The unfinished Country Walk subdivision is the subject of the request. The development is located on the east side of Martinsville Road, north of Savage Road. And we'll hear from the applicant, please. Good evening.
My name is Philip Kunzman from Upland Homes, and I'm seeking approval on elevations for these 3 homes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I think so. Okay, good. Anything in specific you want to tell us before we hear the review?
Not really.
Great. Ms. Stamper, I think you've done a review of the applicant's submissions. Do you want to walk us through it, please?
Actually, Chairman Thompson, I'm actually going to go through the review.
Well, all
Sorry
right.
about that.
Keep me guessing.
Um,
Thanks, Director Akers.
So the applicant Upland Homes is requesting architectural approval for additional home plans and facade elevations for single-family residential dwellings in the Country Walk development. These plans were reviewed subject to the PRD agreement, the memorandum of understanding, which was executed several years ago, and the standards of the zoning ordinance, which specifically looks at architectural detail. So as we do with all these recommendations, I'll look through certain items and I'll just give some brief. One of the items we look at is the site plan, and we can make sure that the proposed homes can meet the setback requirements that we have for the Country Walk sub. One of the comments that we had made is that one of the plans 21, 22, is actually slightly, or 42 and 43 foot 4 inches in width, which will not meet the setback requirements on the 61 foot wide lots. There are a handful of 61 foot wide lots. They're not all the lots are 61 feet wide, but there are a handful of them. So, one of the things that we're recommending as part of our staff review is that, like we do with all of them, we're going to review each individual lot and each individual plan and make sure that the home that they're proposing to put on the site plans will meet those setback requirements. So because there are homes that there are lots within the subdivision that these plans could fit on, we're still recommending to move forward. Floor area, as we mentioned before, the PRD agreement requires that the square footage of the homes for the 536 units average at least 1,750 square feet. So based on that, staff's not identifying any issues proposed with the new home plans. The third item that we look at is facade elevation. So as the Planning Commission knows, we have to meet the substantially different architectural design standard when we look at these subdivisions, and we achieve this by reviewing with each and every individual building permit that the homes are substantially different from, it'd be 3 lots across the street right in front of it, and then 2 lots on either side of the proposed lot. Because the applicant already has a number of elevations, which we've already approved, there's no conflict with them being able to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance with regards to this, because really what this does is it adds more diversity to their home portfolio, which further gives them the ability to meet these requirements. Building materials was another item that we look at. On Country Walk, we require brick to the belt course of the home, which all the architectural plans identify, so this requirement's been met. And then the fifth item we look at is side entry garages, because as many of you know, in Country Walk, the PRD agreement specifically requires at least 30% of the homes have side entry garages, and it lists the lots that are specifically required to have those side entry garages. All the elevations that were proposed have side entry garage options, so this requirement could easily be met. So based on that, staff is making the recommendation that the Planning Commission approve the site plan amendment to the Country Walk development for the addition of the elevations, with the condition that staff will verify that the lot is wide enough when we review the plot plans for housing plan submittal. That again, we review each application to make sure that they meet the architecturally distinct requirement and the design standards in the PRD agreement. The last item that I did want to highlight, because I know one of the comments that we've received with regards to Country Walk is the color of the siding. I did get a chance to speak to Phil before the meeting, and he didn't indicate that any of the siding that he's planning on using on the homes are earth tone siding. Would be consistent with the color pattern that's in the subdivision.
That's correct. Yeah.
So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Questions or comments from the commission for the applicant or for staff? Anyone in the audience? Questions or comments? Looks like we're good. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, with regard to case 19-015 Upland Homes Site Plan Amendment, I move to approve the amendment as presented for the Country Walk site plan for revised single-family architectural elevations, subject to the condition that Township Planning staff shall review that each application for a new single-family home in the development meets the required setbacks, and that the elevation meets the township's substantially different architectural design standards set forth in the PRD.
Motion the letter, the review letter? Okay,
In accordance with the letter dated, help me out, what's the date?
April 2nd.
April 2nd, from Planning and Economic Development intern Grace Stamper.
Great, thank you. Is there support?
Support?
Commissioner Franzoy, any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Good luck. Keep building those good houses and keep selling them.
Very much.
Thank you. We are to general discussion in tonight's agenda. Let me start with you, Director Akers. Anything for general discussion?
Nothing for general discussion, thank you.
Okay, because you've been busy on a bunch of other stuff, I can tell. Commissioners, anything for general discussion? Anyone in the audience? Any items for general discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Commissioner Budd, support?
Support.
Commissioner Atchison, all in favor say aye. Aye. And we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
9:03.